Become fearless. Now let's begin. What would it be like to live a fearless life? Is it really possible to pursue your dreams without feeling doubtful, hesitant, or insecure? The truth is that fear isn't something you can overcome once and for all. The sooner you process that, the sooner you can understand what it means to be truly fearless. There will always be new and challenging things that scare you. Life will never run out of hurdles, roadblocks, and chances for you to fail. But that doesn't mean you're doomed to be timid and apprehensive for the rest of your life. Once you learn how to become fearless, you can grab your fears by the horns. You can use them to your advantage. Your fears become stepping stones toward the future that you've always imagined for yourself. But to make that happen, you have to transform the way you think about fear. Start by really internalizing the idea that your fears will never disappear completely. No one, not even the most confident people in the world, can charge in head first without feeling some degree of fear. That just isn't how the human brain works. And even if it was, you'd be doing yourself a massive disservice. On an evolutionary level, fear keeps you alive. It's a fundamental response ingrained in almost every complex organism on the planet. It's been around for millions of years, providing animals with protection against physical, mental, and social danger. A cat, for example, might be afraid of a dog. That dog could cause physical pain, so the cat instinctively responds with fear. Stress hormones start flooding the brain. Its breathing and heart rate quickens. Its body tenses up. The cat goes into fight-or-flight mode because it feels like its life is on the line. But fear isn't just an evolutionary life jacket. In many ways, it's responsible for keeping you sane and reasonable. Fear plays devil's advocate for every good and bad decision that you make. If it weren't for your fears, you wouldn't have the sense to think before you act. Imagine you're about to go cliff diving. Seems like an awesome idea, right? You've seen dozens of videos of people doing it before, but just when you're about to jump, you get scared. You think to yourself, what if it isn't safe? What if there are actually rocks hiding under the waves? Sure enough, you take a closer look and realize you nearly jumped onto a bed of underwater boulders. If it weren't for your fears, you could have gotten seriously injured. You would have done something you'd regret for the rest of your life because your fears weren't there to keep you in check. While your fears can stand in your way, they also make the best things in life worth doing. Many of the most rewarding experiences are only possible because at first you were scared out of your wits. You see, for something really positive to happen, it often starts with something negative. Let's say, for example, you realize that you're failing one of your classes. You've always been afraid of failure, so your fear kicks you into high gear. Over the next few months, you work tirelessly to improve your grade, and your hard work pays off. Against all odds, you earn yourself an A in the class. Won't that good grade feel 10 times more rewarding than the easy A you've had since day one? Your fears work the same way. You might spend years convincing yourself that you can't do something. Maybe you've backed out and run away more times than you can count. But when you finally summon the courage to face your fears, guess what happens? You achieve something to be proud of. You make a memory that lasts a lifetime, and you learn crucial lessons about yourself and your limits. My point here is that fear serves an important purpose, but this fact raises bigger questions about what it means to be fearless. If fearless isn't terminating or getting rid of your fears, then what is it? People who are fearless know one thing with absolute certainty. Fear is strong, but you are stronger. In other words, don't pretend that your fears are meaningless or insignificant. Don't brush them off like they aren't worth your time. Listen and pay attention to your fears so you can find the most rewarding ways to overcome them. Now, most people don't realize this, but fear is a great source of direction. It tells you where specifically you need to grow and improve as a person. Let's say you get scared every time you have to start up a conversation with a stranger. It's tempting to pretend that your fear doesn't exist, to make believe that you really are secure and assertive no matter how often your brain tells you otherwise. So, you decide to do something the vast majority of people do every single day. You stuff those fears as far down as you can, hoping they'll just disappear. But here's the bad news. They're not going anywhere. Denying your fear is like putting a Band-Aid over a broken bone. The Band-Aid might cover up the break, but it's never going to heal it. That's why fearless people treat their fears like new opportunities. Each one is trying to open your eyes to something that you're lacking. Maybe you aren't happy with where you are in life, or you're not confident because you don't feel like you've done anything to be proud of. These are the kinds of fears that people hold on to for decades without realizing they don't have to be scared of anything. Every fear, from a fear of heights to a fear of success, starts and ends somewhere. There's always a reason why you're afraid, and a way to get those fears under control. That's why the first step to being fearless is having the courage to recognize your fears. Get them out in broad daylight. Identify as best as you can where they come from and why they terrify you. A lot of people find it helpful to write them down because it reminds you of the obstacles that you want to overcome. Shining a spotlight on your fears obviously isn't enough to get the better of them. So the second step to becoming fearless is to actively make changes to your life. Of the few people who have identified their fears, many of them get hung up on step number 1. They know what they're scared of and why, but they aren't willing to make sacrifices even if they know it'll improve the quality of their life. They feel intimidated because facing your fears seems like it'll change everything instantly. In their mind, it's like you're flipping a switch and suddenly you're a different person. But in reality, facing your fears changes more about your habits and lifestyle than your personality. And it's gradual. It's not some instant life-altering transformation. The most important part is that you're willing to make those changes. That means doing things you don't want to do, taking risks that you wouldn't normally take, and being brave enough to put your future before your present. Sometimes that kind of long-term gratification can feel like its own insurmountable roadblock. It helps to remember that your ultimate goal isn't to stomp these fears out of existence. If you used to be afraid of public speaking, for example, you shouldn't convince yourself there's nothing intimidating about getting up in front of an audience. Your fears were real then, and they're real now. The only difference is that you have the strength to listen without giving in. You learned how to keep your fears in mind and make your own decisions. Unfortunately, this strange blindness toward fear happens all the time. People forget their fears as soon as they move past them. They immediately lose sight of why they worked so hard to get over their fears in the first place. I can't tell you how many times I've heard people laugh at themselves for being so ridiculous or naive. But what happens when they run into another problem? 9 times out of 10, they'll sit there staring at this new massive roadblock and feeling absolutely terrified. Wouldn't it be more helpful to remember the hard work and confidence that carried you through the last time? Don't you want to continue having faith in yourself so that every fear doesn't catapult you right back to square one? This is actually the third step to becoming fearless. Each time you successfully overcome one of your fears, make sure you retain your conviction. As you move through life, your fears will get bigger and badder. More than ever, you'll find yourself flooded by doubts and searching for answers. Look, I know that sounds scary, but you don't need to worry. You're powerful and capable enough to fight back against your fears, no matter how impossible it seems. Just don't lose sight of how far you've come or how much you've grown. Every time you take control of your fears, from the tiniest nerves to the largest phobias, you're proving to yourself that you deserve your own trust, that you're someone who's worth believing in. Which brings us to the fourth and final step. Fearless people give themselves credit. They're able to continuously have faith in themselves because they recognize their accomplishments as accomplishments. Overcoming your fears is challenging and time-consuming. It can take months or even years of hard work, and it's something everyone in the entire world struggles with. So don't sell yourself short. As you confront your fears, give yourself the pat on the back that you deserve. You need that kind of self-encouragement so you can continue believing in your ability to succeed.